immediate need support that balloons of the type that we're manufacturing here can support our crews, quite frankly.
Okay, and the one thing that I noted in the background material, no pro forma financial statements, which kind of necessary. Do you have those available? What are your projections, the financial projections, the income, the profit, etc.?
We do, of course, have financial data, yes.
And is there any reason that I didn't get a copy of them as a voting member of this board? I just got this documentation on Friday at noon.
I think that's proprietary information, Supervisor.
The financials, and you're asking taxpayers to invest in the money financials
Did you wish
seriously?
to respond?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Yes, so the financials of the company are proprietary information. Happy to have a conversation with you after the meeting if you would like, so that we could bring you up to speed on the projections and the forecast for the company.
That would have been nice before the vote. Have you got FAA on your vehicle? I know the county is on the hook to get the FAA approval for the launch pad, and you're getting it for your vehicle. Do you have that at this time?
Yep. Madam Chairwoman, Gwinnett County Supervisors, Administrator, we currently fly with the FAA, completely coordinated with them. We have all of the paperwork, excuse me, and permissions we need to fly unmanned flights. We have also flown manned flights under similar agreements with the FAA. The licensing of the launch pad is a process that we'll be responsible for, and we'll obviously be working with the owners of the launch pad to make that happen. We've had preliminary meetings. I've had meetings in D.C. with the FAA headquarters, run through all of the operations. We've been working with the FAA since 2011 on our generic operations. We explained to them how those would be done here. We then had a meeting with essentially all of the stakeholders, the Air National Guard, the airport, the county, and the city, and went through our concept of operations. There were lots of questions for the FAA about our ability to get this site licensed, and they didn't see any problems. In fact, the FAA is quite excited about Tucson because we have an excellent radar and separation services here. So talking with the FAA, they think the spot that's been chosen is probably the best in the country. They're very excited about being able to kind of a balloon-based space flight out of Tucson.
Well, congratulations.
So you're doing tourism, space flight tourism. First of all, it's 100,000 feet, correct? That isn't actually into space. That's up to, it's not in space, correct?
The definition of space has been defined several times. The FAA defines space, as far as we're concerned, as 62,000 feet, which is the altitude at which you must have a life support system in order to operate. Others define space higher. Basically what you find is that people define space to their needs. But Worldview's operations for human flight are regulated as a spacecraft, just like Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, and others. And that was determined by the FAA because they determined that we would have to be using the spacecraft to be above 62,000 feet. So as far as the FAA is concerned, it is space.
Do you have FAA certification to take people up in your balloons?
We have received FAA certification to take a person up in our balloon, which we did 3 times in 2014. You may remember the StratX Alan Eustace program. We are the holders of human ballooning records, having taken him 3 times, and the highest altitude being 136,000 feet, and safely returning him to his family. So we have a lot of experience and hold the records now. In fact, that hardware will be in the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum because and it's actually one of the only times that the Collections Committee of the Air and Space Museum has had a unanimous decision to accept hardware because of the achievements done by the team that we have here in Tucson.
Don't forget about Pima Air and Space Museum.
What's that?
Don't forget about Pima Air and Space Museum.
So you have done...
Pima Air and Space Museum has a propeller manufactured by my great-grandfather for the First World War.
So you have done 3 flights?
We have done 3 flights with a person, and we've done almost 40 flights unmanned.
And where did you launch those from?
We launched the unmanned flights from several cities, some airports in this area, from Pinal Air Park, from Marana, and Benson, and Page. We've also conducted flights out of Roswell, New Mexico.
Okay, one of the things that I did is I actually pulled up the FAA requirements for getting certification on a launch pad, and they actually did a white paper on it, and it takes roughly 2.8 years, and that's the average to get a spaceport approved. They've actually done a white paper. How far into this process are you?
So the process is basically 3 phases. One is preparing your application, then the FAA's response period, and then the actual operational certification. The preparation of the application goes parallel with our operating parallel. So as we develop operations, we develop the application. That's sort of a 4 to 6 month process. The FAA has a 6-month requirement to respond, and then it's a few months after that. So yes, the process has taken years in many cases because there wasn't a deadline and they were developing, but if you look at the timelines required, the application process really is not an issue. It's simply building the spaceport, getting operations going, and developing the overall operation.
So you haven't submitted your application yet?
No, the application process has begun. We had the official kickoff meeting with the FAA stakeholders. The next process is to work with them through the application process.
Okay, so you have not yet done that. Then you, let's see, you're not wanting to talk about your financials, which makes it really difficult. $75,000 is the projected price for a space ride.
Yes, at this time that is correct.
And I read in your materials that I researched on the internet that you've already begun taking deposits on those in December 2013.
Yes, that's also correct.
And do you have a significant number of deposits?
Yes, so we have indeed started taking deposits and selling tickets. They have all been incoming. We haven't actually put in place a full sales team yet. However, we do already have, just through passive sales, people from all around the world who have purchased them. We've had families buy them. So yeah, we've got some very good response.
And you talk about the production for the balloons. What type of employees do you expect in the facility? What type of job descriptions? Because I didn't see anything like that. What type of jobs?
Right, so yeah, a wide variety of jobs. The lion's share of them are manufacturing jobs, so that would be in manufacturing the balloons. We will have flight operators, ground operators, pilots, engineers, sales and marketing people, test engineers. What am I missing? That gives you a sense of the kind of people, very broad.
The majority will be manufacturing personnel.
Yes, the majority will be manufacturing personnel.
Okay. And I did have some questions for Mr. Huckleberry, but so I'm finished asking you questions. I don't know if anyone else has any.
There was another. I think Supervisor Elias had asked to be recognized first. Yeah, actually, he did.
I appreciate that. I'd just like to follow up. You said you have these institutional investors from Europe and the United States and that they expect a very high rate of return. When you look into your business plans, I'd like to look into your business plans for the taxpayers on behalf of the taxpayers, and we did not get that. I'm just taking your word up here. I mean, it's really nice to hear you say, yes, it's going to be great. Yes, I know it's going to be great, but I'm not seeing the data. I can't just take your word on that you're going to bring this great return on balloons, not going, just going up 100,000 feet. And, why haven't you given that data to me, to analyze, to look into? I'm a finance person, so I like looking into these things. And I would give you the same, you can understand my frustration. You're asking me to vote to invest taxpayer money with no information. Go to your website. It's just, a very simple website without a whole lot of projections on what you're going to do. It looks like it was recently created, as a matter of fact, and I'm just not seeing a whole lot of detail on the type of company you have, the type of information that should be out there on a website of a company that is high-tech, producing product and where you're going in the future and what your projections are and who is interested in investing in your company. There's no data there whatsoever on who the investors are. I just really find it very frustrating. At noon on Friday, folks, I was given the information to vote on this, and not even 5 days. And it appears, I'd like to know who knew about this for 6 to 9 months. And a contract was agreed to in December. You wrote an acceptance letter. And I'm very stunned that this board is supposed to be meeting in public meetings and voting together and analyzing this. And it appears this was all done without at least one board member knowing anything about it at all. Very frustrating. And again, if you have a list of, if you have your business plan, I'd love to look at it even right now. Do you have it with you?
Chairwoman, no, I'm sorry, I do not have it with us. I would be happy to set up a meeting with you, though.
Thank you.
Supervisor Elise? Thank you.
Okay. The one thing I'd like to note, and for the audience to understand, in year 19, this company has the ability to purchase this facility from the county for $10. Is that correct? There's a purchase agreement option in year 19.
Madam Chair and Supervisor Miller, if you look at the option closely, it goes from 6 months into year 9 to 17.
Right.
And then that expires. The second option was really to basically buy, but give us notice in 6 months ahead to actually purchase it for $10, which would be the term of the 20 years. But at that point in time, they had paid $23.5 million in rent.
But that's paying us back for the loan that we're taking out to purchase, to build this facility, correct? That $23 million.
Madam Chair and Supervisor Miller, the aggregate principal and interest on the loan is $20.3 million. The payback on the rent is $23.5 million.
That's if we get 4% on the COPS. The assumption is 4% on the COPS.
Yes, Madam Chair, the assumption is 4%. I guess the market is below that today.
And another question I have for you, what is the asset that we're using to secure these COPS?
It is the land itself or other county facilities.
Okay, so you haven't identified the county facilities because we've mortgaged our parking garages, the courthouse, the jail. What facilities? You haven't even identified what facilities we're going to mortgage.
We've identified it. We'll have a package of financing coming to the board in 2 meetings.
Okay. All right. I got this on Friday, less than 5 days, and I'd like to quote Supervisor Bronson being very upset in the paper about the Reed to horse racing contract only having 5 days to review. I think you can understand my frustration. If you're going to companies to speak to them, they have a lot more than 5 days. Whether this is anything to do with you, it's a communication issue within the county, obviously. Approving this contract today without performing the due diligence that the voters deserve, and ensuring we're not in violation of the gift clause, which I think we are, and procurement statutes. I don't know how we can invoke an emergency, but we are. I just have to say, the taxpayers of Pima County just spoke loudly and clearly. They rejected the economic development portion of the Sonoran Corridor, along with taxpayer-funded tech parks. By 60% voted no. This was just 2 months ago. They rejected tourism by an even higher rate, and this is tourism. This was 190,000 voters in this community. This is disregarding the will of the voters, telling them you have no respect for their wishes, and ramming it down their throats. Pima County taxpayers deserve better. Picking winners and losers will deter private sector investment in Pima County. Why would a private sector investor come in here and risk not knowing who the next winner will be? It could be their competition. One of the things people need to know as well is this company is already here, located at the airport in Pima County, and I assume you're paying rent at your existing facility. Funding a startup business by providing this building for which they have the option of purchasing for $10 is competing with the private sector. The private sector has over 4 million vacant space of industrial space here in Pima County already. It'll discourage private investors and developers from coming here. We're setting ourselves up to be a taxpayer-funded economy, and maybe people are good with that. Imposing this level of risk, because I haven't seen anything, and I certainly read the report of the company out of Phoenix that had all kinds of disclaimers and said they couldn't even be sued over any of the information that they provided. They were very nervous about this report, obviously. New Mexico Spaceport, what I researched on it, it's a $250 million failure. There's a legislator actually putting up a legislation to try to put it up for sale. It's empty. X-Core in Texas, Midland, Texas, $10 million investment. That one isn't off the ground. We're not even funding our core services like roads and paying our sheriff's deputies the step increases they were promised when they were hired. Yet we're choosing to invest borrowed monies. Taxpayers are mortgaging their assets to borrow this money in an extremely risky enterprise with individuals at the helm who were part of the biosphere experiment, which failed. The taxpayers of this community deserve better. They deserve to be listened to. And I'm certain the taxpayers won't forget what happens here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Carroll.